Digital downloads are great in so many ways. You no longer have to leave your home to try out the latest game, you don't need to wait for a store to open, or for your game to arrive in the mail on release day, and you no longer need to swap out game discs when you want to switch games. Digital storefronts allow even more developers to release games since they no longer have to go through the difficult and costly process of manufacturing and distributing their games to stores. There's a reason why in 2023, 95% of all money made on games came from digital storefronts. That said, these benefits are only useful for as long as these stores remain online. Stores for the Wii, Wii U, DSi, 3DS, and Xbox 360, just to name a few, have all been shut down. And as time marches on, only more consoles are going to be added to that list. Not only are the conveniences of digital downloads lost, but also countless games as well. If there's a game that you want to play from those consoles, better hope you can find a physical copy, because if it was digital only, then I'm sorry, there's no legal way for you to play it anymore. In 2015, Mighty Rabbit Studios saw the writing on the wall for digital-only titles, and they wanted their games to outlast the storefronts they were bound to. That's why they founded Limited Run Games, and created their first limited run game, a print of 1,500 copies of their game Breach and Clear for the PlayStation Vita. In just a little over an hour and a half after they went on sale, every single copy had sold. Even though Breach and Clear was kind of a niche title on a niche system, there were still avid collectors wanting to support these preservation efforts. Creating a print run of a game is a daunting task. You need to print a minimum quantity of these games, which is a huge upfront cost, along with finding stores to carry them and a place to store them. This is a massive simplification of the process, but long story short, it's a massive money sink and difficult for small indie studios to do. That's why Limited Run expanded from printing just their titles to indie developers' titles. Limited Run covers all the challenges of manufacturing and distribution, has a built-in audience of collectors, and their pre-order system guarantees that everyone who wants a copy can get one. Granted that they get in during the pre-order window. While some folks are annoyed by the wait from pre-order to delivery, or the difficulty of getting out-of-print titles, I think that this system's probably the best way of doing it. Since manufacturing is a costly process, they can make sure that they make exactly enough by taking pre-orders. If they made too few, not enough fans could get the game they wanted. But if they made too many, the games would sit in a warehouse unsold, and the manufacturing costs could send them underwater. It's not perfect, but it's the best solution we have for niche releases. Thanks to these efforts, small titles but with dedicated followings could live beyond the shops they're on. Go Go Cocopolo is one example of that already. While it was a small eShop title, it got a release from Limited Run. Now I can still play it, even though the 3DS eShop is gone. Plus, with their releases of my favorite games like Wandersong, Floppy Nights, and Duck Game, I'll be able to enjoy these titles for years to come as well. They haven't just printed modern indie titles though, they've also done re-releases of older rare titles like Shantae on the Game Boy Color. Not releasing just a cartridge, but releasing it on modern platforms too. They've developed their Carbon engine, a way to easily port older titles to modern systems, allowing the games from the past to remain playable even if you don't have the old hardware anymore. Their in-house team doesn't just re-release retro titles though, they've also started publishing games too. Limited Run helped bring Arzette, the Jewel of Faramore, to life by publishing it, and it feels like a perfect fit. Arzette is a fun CDI-style game inspired by those so-bad-it's-good Zelda games, except it's actually good. If you want, you can check out my review for Arzette, because I had a lot of fun playing it. I think my favorite part of Limited Run's efforts is their dedication to preservation. Most games nowadays will have post-launch updates to fix bugs or add content, so many of Limited Run's releases are printed years after a game's initial launch, to make sure the best version of it's preserved. The most notable instance of this was when they did their release of Celeste. The team at LRG waited to print the game until after the Farewell expansion was finished so that the complete game could be available on the cartridge. Sure, some collectors were annoyed at the extra wait, but the majority agreed that it was worth it for the complete experience to be preserved. That was 5 years ago, but now I think that Limited Run has lost their way, and I say that as someone who is a massive fan of their work. I think the straw that broke the camel's back for me was Rainworld's recent release. Rainworld had already received a release in 2018 on the PS4, which included the 1.5 update. That added the monk and the huntress playable characters, and was considered the complete experience at the time. Since then, Rainworld has come to the Switch and PS5, and launched with the Remix update and Downpour DLC. Remix added lots of quality of life features, and Downpour more than doubled the amount of content in the game, with multiple new campaigns and the addition of co-op. When Limited Run announced that they were doing a new print of Rainworld for the Switch and PS5, I was ecstatic. Downpour had added some amazing new content, and playing Rainworld co-op sounded like some chaotic fun. Rainworld is about a $25 download. frequently dropping to $10 in Steam sales, and its DLC costs about $15. Limited Run is charging $40 for the release of the game, which is $50 after tax and shipping. Normally I'd call that a fair price, since I understand that there's some costs involved with the manufacturing and distribution process, but something seemed kinda off about the listing. The description didn't mention Downpour at all, only the core game's content. I'd already dropped $50 on what I thought was a complete version of Rain World, hoping that I could keep the Slugcat stories preserved long after the Switch eShop eventually goes offline. I did some digging, and my heart sank when I found out my hunch was right. None of the content in Downpour was going to be in this release. Other than the addition of Remix Mode, which offers some options to customize your Rain World experience, this release's contents are identical to the 2018 release. Without Downpour, Rain World is missing more than 2/3 of its content. 6 out of 9 campaigns, Expedition Mode, and Co-op are all excluded from the physical release. What's the point of preservation if it means preserving an incomplete package? Also, if you're wondering why PS4 isn't included in this print, it's because Limited Run refuses to reprint any titles.
I think it violates the agreement that we made with our customers. I mean, we have told our customers we will not reprint our own games.
Right.
That's right. If a game receives a spike in popularity or new content after its printing, Limited Run does not do reprints. Their reasoning? They want to keep their prints limited because that's what their customers expect when they buy from them. Translation? We want to appease scalpers and drive more sales with FOMO instead of focusing on preservation. In fact, preserving indie games seems to be an afterthought for them now. It seems like larger studios want to stick to digital distribution, so Limited Run handles the prints of their games. Yeah, I guess I'm glad these games are getting preserved as well, but I always saw Limited Run as the indie preservation company, not the dumping ground for AAAs that don't want to do their own manufacturing. You'd be lucky to find an indie game in their recent releases between stuff like Star Wars, Yakuza, Castlevania, Hitman, Persona, and even Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic is especially an interesting case. Sonic X Shadow Generations is getting a wide physical release like any other game, but Limited Run is handling its collector's edition. If you want to pay $250 for a statue, steelbook, and some other neat knickknacks, then this is a great deal. While I admit the merch on display here is really cool, especially those Chow figurines, the $250 price tag is a bit tough to swallow, especially when the Sonic Mania Collector's Edition included a similar statue, but retailed at only $70. Even if its price wasn't a factor, Limited Run has a history of slow shipping, and this is a game that I want to play on release day. It kind of feels like Limited Run is turning into less of a bastion of indie game preservation, and more like a toy store. Similar to how it feels when you walk into a GameStop and you see shelves upon shelves of Funko Pops. So you got the Sonic Collector's Edition, but how about some Dreamcast merch while you're at it? Keychain? Pin? Coin? Skate deck? Apparel? All of this is stuff that I feel would be way more at home in a clothing store or a Sega merch site, not here. Why is a company whose mission was making physical prints of indie titles making t-shirts for a AAA company's defunct console? Speaking of defunct consoles, remember the 3DO? Because I don't. Apparently, when Limited Run released D for the 3DO, they didn't go through a manufacturer that made 3DO discs, instead printing them on burned CDRs. Anyone with a disk drive can do that, so why pay a premium for that? It gets worse though, as CDRs can actually damage the console. Imagine ordering a game for your retro console, and then that game ends up breaking your system. Limited Run at least went out and replaced the CDRs with actual 3DO discs, but that begs the question, why didn't they just do that in the first place? Another faulty product that they sent out was the Doom Classics Collection. Despite being a physical copy intended to preserve the classics, to play the game, you'd first need to go online and activate the software with Bethesda. I can't imagine that being too useful for preservation if those servers ever go offline. Just like with the burned D discs, Limited Run offered replacements for the faulty copies, but it still goes to show that preservation is taking a back seat to just cranking out as many games as possible. This whole situation is just frustrating. I used to be excited for every new release Limited Run did, but now it's just AAA leftovers and toys. And even for indie games, you're not guaranteed a complete package anymore. I really hope that Limited Run can shape up and get back to their game's preservation mission, but at least other folks are stepping up where they're currently failing. Devolver has currently started doing their own prints of their games, along with making them more easily accessible than what LRG does. Super Rare Games does their own prints similar to Limited Run as well, but their focus is definitely more indie, and they seem to print plenty of extras, so that you can still get a copy if you missed the pre-order window. They've even started publishing their own games, like Grapple Dogs, Cosmic Canines, one of my favorite new platformers. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that limited run can do better, or is this the end of an era? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.